It has been 2 weeks since the arrival of the Galactic Federation. 2 weeks since the first contact was made. 2 weeks since we saw those strange battles in the sky above and for 2 weeks now, everyone had hoped that it would all be over soon. That the Galactic Federation would leave and everything would go back to normal. But unfortunately, that's not what happened. In fact, if anything, things have gotten worse. Because now, they're back. They're back with more ships and with much more soldiers. They're here for one thing only, to take over the planet. And they don't care how many lives they take to do so. The news came from the west side of the planet, where the scout ships had arrived just before dawn. Everyone was called to emergency meeting by the council. But seeing as no one had any idea what to do, it was mostly just panicked yelling. We need to get out of here. We need to evacuate the planet. It was the mayor who yelled that. He was standing right next to the council leader, Zora. How can you even suggest such a thing? She screamed back. Evacuate! Where are we supposed to go? There are planets in our system without atmospheres. There are oceans boiling on other planets. And you say we should evacuate? She turned her head and looked up at the screen showing the live view from the satellites around the planet. A fleet of over 200 ships was shown. There were hundreds more arriving every minute. They've come in full force, she said, her voice barely a whisper now. Kira was also watching the footage with the others. This was all wrong. The battle in the sky had gone on for days, and when he had talked to Ripple about it, they had agreed that if it happened again, he would simply use his powers to calm the oceans down. But this wasn't like before. This was an all-out attack. Their goal was to destroy them. He needed to get away from the noise. So he stepped outside and walked towards the western docks where the spaceport was located. He had been working on a small ship for the past few months. It was a single-person vessel that could maybe fit some cargo too. He planned to use it to travel around the solar system to see what else was out there. Now, it seemed that he wouldn't be able to use it for that purpose anymore. But before he got to the docks, he heard a familiar laugh. Looking around, he saw Ripple standing on the edge of the pier, looking out at the sea. Beside him was the small, cute alien creature that had followed them from the forest after they rescued it from the Federation soldiers. The creature was pointing its little finger towards the horizon and squeaking loudly. Ripple followed its gaze and then turned back to Kira. You see that? He asked, a serious look on his face. The tiny alien was already gone, having disappeared into one of the buildings near the spaceport. Ripple turned back to the ocean and stretched out his arms. Waves started rising from the surface, forming giant walls of water that rushed towards the shore. Then they stopped abruptly, hanging in the air just above the surface, still and silent. What are you doing? Kira asked, stepping closer to Ripple. I think it's time that we show them what we're capable of, Ripple replied. He closed his eyes and focused. The waves stretched and deformed, turning into giant whips that lashed out towards the incoming fleet. But before they could strike, Ripple retracted them again, bending them into long, sharp javelins instead. With a flick of his wrist, he sent them flying. The water walls hit the ships, and the smaller fighters were ripped apart like paper. But the larger vessels were still standing. It's not enough, Ripple said, frustrated. He wanted to help the people. He wanted to defend his home, but he couldn't bring himself to kill anyone. Kira watched the battle unfold, understanding what Ripple was struggling with. Can you hack into their systems? Ripple asked suddenly, his voice filled with resolve. Kira nodded. Maybe I can cause some damage, but it won't stop them from invading. Then disable their engines. Just disable their engines, and I'll finish the rest. As soon as Kira agreed, he ran towards his ship. His fingers flew across the keyboard, connecting to the local network. He had disabled the security systems the moment he arrived on the planet, so getting access to the military network was easy. Finding the right frequency, however, took longer than expected. But finally, when the first wave of aliens landed, he managed to lock on to their main ship. Now, all he had to do was find the engine room and shut it down. He found it and uploaded a virus that would hopefully do the trick. Now, he had to get out of there quickly before someone noticed him. He disconnected and turned the ship around, making sure to hide behind a large container ship as he did so. As he watched through the cameras, he saw the ship shake violently. A good sign that the virus had worked. But he knew that this was only the beginning. This was just a small fraction of the forces the Galactic Federation had sent. Suddenly, the communication crackled to life. "Kira, come in! Kira, do you read me? It was Ripple! I'm here!" Kira answered. "How's it going?" "Bad. They're sending in more ships. We can't hold them off much longer," Ripple said. His voice was strained. "What about your virus? Did it work?" Kira asked. "It did, but they're sending in reinforcements." "I'm almost out of energy, and the waves aren't doing much against their shields anymore." "We need to end this quickly before they repair the damage and send in ground troops." Kira bit his lip. He didn't like the sound of that. Ground troops meant one thing: a full-scale invasion. He needed to do something to help Ripple, but as he scanned the area, he saw nothing that he could use. Suddenly, he spotted his ship. An idea sparked in his mind. Maybe he could lure the aliens away from the coast. If he could just get them away from Ripple, then maybe they would be easier to defeat. He contacted Ripple again. "I have an idea. Can you hold them off for 5 minutes?" "5 minutes," Ripple repeated. "Why 5 minutes?" "Because that's how long I'll need," Kira said. "Just buy me some time." Taking off into the sky, he maneuvered the ship so that it was between the aliens and the city. Immediately, laser fire tore into his ship, but he had expected that. His ship was protected by an experimental energy shield that the Council had developed. The same technology was being used in the domes that protected the cities from the radiation of the planet. With the ship's guns, he engaged the aliens, firing at their ships and dodging their return fire. He couldn't win this battle, but he could delay it. He just had to hold them off until Ripple was ready. As the battle raged on, Kira watched in horror as more and more ships arrived. The Galactic Federation wasn't messing around. They really wanted this planet. He pushed the ship harder, weaving through the ships and dodging their attacks. Finally, he managed to break through and get close to the main ship. This was it! He connected to the ship's systems and began uploading the virus. If this worked, it would destroy the entire fleet. But if it didn't, then he would be caught in the explosion. There was no turning back now. Back at the city, Ripple was watching Kira's desperate struggle. He knew that Kira was buying him time, but he also knew that this couldn't last forever. Soon, the energy shield protecting the city would be overloaded, and then they would be defenseless. He closed his eyes and reached out with his senses. He could feel the emotions of the people around him. Fear, sadness, anger. But above all, he could feel their determination. They would not give up. He would not let them down. Taking a deep breath, he reached out into the ocean once more, gathering its power into his hands. This time, he wouldn't hold back. This time, he would protect his home, no matter what it cost. Kira managed to upload the final bits of the virus, and then he felt it. The explosion rocked the ship, throwing him against the controls. He struggled to keep consciousness as the energy shield flickered and died. But he had done it. The virus had worked. The fleet was destroyed. But the victory was short-lived because he could feel their presence even before he saw them. The ground troops had arrived.